Hi, everyone. Welcome to Potluck Food Talks. Today, we have a very special guest, Leslie Wang from Taiwan. Hi, Leslie.
Hello, Eric.
We've been talking online, like via chats for a couple of years. I remember when I was in Bolivia, I saw your work. Well, first of all, let me present Leslie. She's a illustration artist focused on food and gastronomy. So she travels, she draws street foods or dishes and drinks from the places she visits. My first question would be, Leslie, how did you started drawing? What got you into the world of, in the broad term, just drawing and illustration before food? Or were the two things together from the very beginning?
Well, I was studying art school, actually, when I was in elementary school and junior high. But after I didn't study art anymore after I go to the college. However, I still really like to work on something visual. So during the studies, I always drawing and sketching on my notebooks. But what I draw is about what I'm going to eat later.
That's how it started.
Yeah, that's a diary and like what I ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's starting to becoming a habit of just recording the food that I ate for 4 years during the college of time. And then I starting to realize that drawing is something I'm really passionate about. And so I started to apply to the grad school to United States, study environmental graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
And another passion of mine is about gastronomy. So there are opportunity to go to Gusto,
Mm-hmm.
working with the NGO, with our university workshops, like summer workshop. That's why I get into know about what fine dining is about and what the food world is about. So I didn't have any background about food education, but that's the starting point of my career about art and food.
And in Bolivia, you did a work documenting street food vendors, right? Like, I know that project. That was pretty cool. And also, I have to say, like, street food in La Paz is super nice. I really like what I had there.
Yeah, I'm curious which part of illustration or artworks you seeing in Bolivia.
Well, all the ones you did for Gusto, actually.
Yeah, the menus.
The menus, yes.
The murals.
And also, yeah, like there was this project, I think it's called Suma Payata, that was about street food vendors.
Yes.
And yeah, it was the most iconic street food dishes of La Paz. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yes, that was the first time for me to travel to South America. And there are so many different kinds of ingredients that I have never seen in Taiwan. Also,
of course,
not in the United States.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so I, as a foreigner, as a tourist, I think it will be struggle for people if they want to order something from the menu, but they don't know what exactly the ingredient is. There are so many ingredients that didn't even have an English name. For example, the papas, hundreds of different potatoes. How can you describe what kind of potato it is? So I started to working on research to documenting the ingredients that they use in the restaurants by illustrations. So that's a system that I created since 2013 and 2014. Took me about 1 year to finish hundreds of different kinds of ingredients, illustrations, bank, which they are still using right now on their menu. It's a system that they can easy to change by themselves and sustainable system. So that's one part of my research at that time.
What other countries have you drawn its food?
Yeah, after Bolivia, I started to do the backpacking, traveling. And the first stop, I think it's Portugal. I went to Europe for backpacking. And then, of course, Copenhagen. I went to Noma to see what actually this come from.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And London, Paris, Milan, Spain. I just traveling all around Europe. And then when I come back to Taiwan, I started to travel around more Asia countries. So like Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Korea. Yeah, for the past 10 years.
Yeah, I've been following you on Instagram for a few years, and I always see you like visiting these cafes and places and restaurants all over Asia. It's super interesting.
Yeah, since I was working on a project called Ounce Magazine.
Yeah, I've seen it on your social media.
Yeah, it's a small illustration booklets that documenting my food diary while traveling. And that's only one of the way for myself to learn about the culture differences through food. And that's also why I started to work on my new book, which introducing the Taiwanese street foods, because I have so many friends that they are not familiar with Taiwanese food as well.
Okay, let's get into that. But before we get into your book and Taiwanese street food, let's introduce a little bit what are the main influence in Taiwanese food culture, because it's not simple, right? Like you have Chinese heritage, but it was also occupied by Japan, if I'm not wrong. So you have like a mixture of different things. So how would you describe or explain this?
Yeah, before I get into this, are there any Taiwanese food that are coming to your mind that you think it's familiar with?
Not really. No, not really, because and actually one of my favorite food movies is this Taiwanese movie, Eat, Man, Woman, Drink.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was always, every time I would see it, I was thinking this Chinese movie, like my brain wouldn't process that it's a different and separate thing, because culturally it's very similar, no? It has very close links.
Yes, but you are familiar with Chinese food and Japanese food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that...
But I couldn't name not a single Taiwanese, not food, not even tea, nothing. No, it's interesting.
Yeah, but Taiwan are renowned for our food. So I'm curious about like what kind of food that outside of the world understand about Taiwan.
Well, what comes to my mind, of course, are dumplings. That would be the first thing.
The Ding Tai Fung, the soup dumplings, xiaolongbao.
Xiaolongbao I have tried, yes.
Xiaolongbao, yeah. Xiaolongbao is from Taiwan. Boba tea, you can see here.
Okay, xiaolongbao is from Taiwan. Okay, I didn't know this. I have cooked that actually.
I see.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, originally from China, from Shanghai. But in Taiwan, we have our version. It's very thin skin. And boba tea is very popular. And also guabao.
What is boba tea?
Boba tea, bubble tea.
Bubble tea, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bubble tea also called boba tea. So it's from Taiwan.
I didn't know that as well.
Yeah, so that you can refer to our tea culture. It's very it's everywhere. So from authentic Gongfu tea, which is the very good tea too. Like every day you can see like tea stand of boba. This is also one part of Taiwanese culture. In street food, it's so many. We have a bunch of night markets, and there are street foods called pork rice, braised pork rice, beef noodles, the pork blood cake, stinky tofu.
Stinky tofu I've tried. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, stinky tofu, and all kinds of street foods that you can see the influence of Chinese and Japanese culture. I'm going to give you some examples. For example, sushi. It's very interesting that there's kind of way of prepping sushi here in Taiwan, but you couldn't even find it in Japan. We usually put a lot of ingredients from the locals, right? So we put meat floss, for example, in the sushi.
So there is like how to say, Taiwan has its own sushi culture.
Yes, I would say Taiwanese, Japanese, Taiwan version Japanese food culture.
Okay, yeah, because you have the same thing in Peru, for instance.
Yeah.
There's like a Japanese Peruvian thing.
And we do have many of those kind of Japanese influence food that you can only find in Taiwan. And also, I like a way of saying, instead of saying Taiwan is a melting pot, you can describe it as a Taiwan spicy hot pot. Have you heard of the hot pot? It's divided in two.
Yeah.
Two kind of broth. Yeah, because we are mainly influenced from Chinese food culture and Japanese food culture because we were occupied by Japan for about 50 years. And before that, there are also different east coast of Chinese migrants come to Taiwan. So we also have Hoklo and Hakka kind of Chinese culture.
These are groups of people of Chinese,
yes.
The ones you mentioned, Hoklo and Hakka.
Hoklo and Hakka. And the way of their cooking, their food is very different. Hoklo food is more like light soup and seafood, this kind of flavor. And Hakka food is more strong, saltier, a lot of fermentation, a lot of conserved food preparation techniques. So we do have a lot of this kind of mixtures. And after the World War II, the Western culture come to Taiwan. So we do have a lot of American influences as well. So we do have like bunch of burger shop, which is called Mei. That's very popular in Taiwan. Is a kind of breakfast shop you can find basically everywhere.
Okay, but what is it exactly? Burger for breakfast.
The burger is only one part of the menu. There are like 20 different variations of breakfast options, but you can see like sandwiches, hamburgers, but these are all Taiwanese flavors with mayo, tomato sauce, but can taste definitely different from American version of burger.
No, absolutely. I was recently in Singapore. It was my first trip to Asia, and I would see the burger restaurants, and I was like, okay, this is like a super Asian adaptation of burgers, with, I don't know, fermented spicy sauces or these kind of things. Yeah. But I think it's pretty cool, though, those mixtures.
There are also many steakhouses, but it's variation of different kind of price range. It's range from $5 for a steak to $200 for a steak. So it's like huge here. You can see the mixture of it. So it's from Western, but it's cooked on the iron plate. It's more like Japanese style, right? Teppanyaki kind of cooking.
Like a teppanyaki, exactly.
Yes, but on top of the steak, we'll put some noodles, which is like, noodles and sunny side up eggs and the sauce of mushroom. So which is like, you can find like many different kind of combinations in one dish. This is like super fusion.
This is like a street food dish. What did you just describe?
Yes, you can find in the night market.
Okay. What's the name of this one?
The steak.
Okay.
It's an iron steak.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you, I got really enthusiastic about tea recently. And every time when I talk with tea experts, they always put Taiwan on the top 3. They talk, Japan, China, and Taiwan has a very special place in the tea world. Why is that? And what has Taiwanese tea different from others? I understand it's also a mixture of Chinese and Japanese, right?
Yeah, definitely. But be honest, I'm not a master of tea person. So I would say for myself, my personal experience, drinking tea is like drinking water, like very, very common beverage that we drink every day. I have a glass of tea right now with me, and you can see all kinds of different bottled tea and, of course, different regions. I think the geography of Taiwan, because we have mountains and we are very geometrically or climate friendly for tea growing. And also the development techniques, it's from like hundreds of years of developing.
Is there like a famous Taiwanese tea, like a type specific or a place that is worth visiting or something like that?
There are 6 main regions of tea growing areas, and they are basically around different kind of mountains. So Taiwan is not big. It's an island, right? But we do have many mountains. So there are teas from Ali Shan, which is like very, very high class tea. Shanlingxi, Li Shan, Lugu, Dongding Oolong Cha. There are so many different kinds of variations of tea that you can find basically in different regions.
Good. Now that we have all this background, let's talk about your book. It's kind of like a guide for people to find places. How would you present your book?
Okay, let me show you the book. It's an illustration book that introducing 200 different kinds of Taiwanese street food stalls all around Taiwan. Because there are so many street foods and the regional variations are quite different. So I decided to work on this book since the COVID-19 start. I couldn't travel anymore. And for myself, finally have time to deeply go into Taiwan in different cities.
Nice.
Yeah, because even for myself, I'm from Taiwan. I don't know the differences of different places, regional food differences. And I really take time. I take 3 years to work on this book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, to actually go to visit local friends and eat the food that they recommend me. So it's really from the locals' recommendations.
What is the book in numbers exactly? You documented 200 styles and how many regions all over the country?
All over the country, cover the 16 different cities. So it's from Taipei to like all around Taiwan.
Oh, wow. What a wonderful project to visit 16 cities and find the best street food places in each one. That's something I want to do.
Yeah, I'll definitely show you around because the reason why I start on this book is I want to show this to friends. I want to learn first and I have some places to bring you around. And this is something I have to definitely start. So I didn't know that's such a big project. I was expected maybe 1 year I can finish like traveling. And then when I start traveling, I feel it's so many different Asians and different kinds of food that you can hard to find in Taipei. Taipei is a capital, right? But you can already find many kinds of street foods from all around Taiwan because people come to Taipei for a living. They start their restaurants and stalls, but there are still many different street foods that you can only find in certain regions because of maybe the ingredients and the way of cooking and the way of tasting differently.
What do you show from each stall? Like just the dish, also the stall? Do you tell a story of the place? Do you describe the best dish? How is exactly each stall in your book?
Actually, every single restaurant I definitely tasted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a personal experience of documenting the feeling and the texture and how the food tastes like. But the majority part is my personal experience by discovering Taiwan culture by eating. So this is basically not just where to go eat guide. It's more like informing an idea what is Taiwanese food about, what is Taiwanese street food about. Because when we go to night market or when you search online, there are definitely like 10 street food must to eat in Taiwan, but there are not just 10. For me, it's like after digging in, there are like hundreds of different variations. I believe in your country, there must be so many regional food, right?
No, of course. Like and in all of the countries that I live, of course, there is like an idea of a standard dish, and there are millions of variation. Everyone has its own secret. Everyone recognizes a dish that it is the thing, but everyone has its own touch. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what gastronomy is about.
Yes, and also it's memory connections with friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a mixture of both, like personal experience and also like the illustrations of documenting, like an illustration book.
What is your process when you illustrate a place or a dish? Do you do it by memory? Do you take a picture and then use it as a guide? Do you do it before, afterwards, while you're eating? I don't know. How is it?
Usually when I'm traveling, I usually draw on the dining table because it's a fast sketch. When I eat it, I just document it right away. So I will bring the material that it's easy to travel with, which is just a notebook, but with scratch paper and also with color pencil. Because color pencil is so easy to bring with you. And let me show you, it's something more like this techniques.
That's part of the book. Okay. I can see it. So it's the text and the illustrations merge. And yeah, it really feels like a diary, like a travel diary with illustration. Super nice.
This page is talking about tea culture in certain area in Miaoli. Miaoli is center of Taiwan. And this is 3 kinds of tea. Lei cha, and this is the Oriental beauty tea. It's also oriented from this area. And this is called Sangan cha. It's a tea made inside of this kind of orange. And you dry it and ferment it for a while. It becomes this color. And then you pour into the hot water. It becomes like this kind of orange flavored tea. So this is a very special tea from that region.
It's also a very good example of how your storytelling works, because there you illustrated like a fermentation process, like the evolution of the product from one state and one color to the other, all in the same bag. It's kind of like an infographic. like the whole book.
Yeah. That's true. And for this kind of tea, 擂茶, it's interesting. It's more similar to matcha tea in Japan, I think. The same technique, but totally different ingredients. Because inside there are tea leaves and also all different kinds of nuts. There are like different nuts. So you ground it and then you pour tea inside, then become like more like a soup dessert kind of tea. Tea dessert.
Super nice.
Yeah. And you can DIY. They have like experience place for people to work on this paste. It's very, very difficult for me. It takes about half an hour to grind those nuts before you actually eat it.
Do you have like any special, like a special story to share during your trips across all these cities and all these stalls?
Yeah, definitely. I feel amazed by how different it could be for one single dish in different cities and different regions of ways of prepping. There's a street food called Bawan in Taiwan. I think Bawan is one of the most underestimated street food.
What is it?
It's a meatballs. It's a shape of meatballs, but covered in it was made in sweet potato starch and filled with meat, pork meat, and sometimes there are bamboo shoots inside. And in different regions, they might have a little different of the ingredients. But in different part of Taiwan, there are steamed bawan, there are deep fried bawan, they are like pan fried. So it makes it all different kinds of flavor.
Yeah, you would see the same, for instance, here in Spain. You have like the potato omelette, like the tortilla, the Spanish omelette. And wherever you go, they will do it different sizes, shapes. Some people add onions, some not. Some people add pepper. Some people add some yolk to the mixture. Some people fry the potatoes really dark. Some people just poach them. That there are like millions of variations, but everybody recognizes as a tortilla if you see one.
I think I tried that, yeah, but only the one kind. I didn't try the variations. So this is the bawan, the meatballs look like.
Okay.
It's like a sticky, slimy texture, kind of. I don't know how to describe it. It's covered with this potato-made starch.
Ah, okay.
And inside it's meat and bamboo shoots. But on top of the meatballs, we also use different kinds of sauce to make it different. So in different regions, the sauce are quite different. Like this is the way of making it in like a small plate and put the starch and then put the bamboo shoots and meat and cover. And then after they steam it, they fried it.
Oh, wow. That's super nice.
Yeah. And put on the sauce. And this is the variations in the center of Taiwan, Puli. The way of the serving, they put a pot of broth on the table for you to pour into the bowls after you finish eating. This is more like a tianbula, like Japanese kind of, when you finish eating and there's a little bit of sauce, sweet sauce, and you pour the soup and drink with it. So I think that's something very special kinds of Taiwanese food. You probably couldn't find it anywhere else.
How was the process of publishing the book? Did self-publishing? You went to a publisher? How was this experience?
Yeah, I work with a publisher since they know I've been working on food illustrations and documenting food cultures all around different cities. And we were definitely coming to an idea how about creating this book that talk more details about Taiwanese street foods. So that was a common idea. And then I started to work on this process. And I was planning on finishing in 1 year and it took me 3.5 years. So I just published last December. And yeah, I think it's a starting point for myself to learn more and deeper about Taiwanese cuisine. And this is something I think it's interesting because the culture is always changing because of the migrants. So for instance, after the 1990s, there are more and more Southeast Asian migrants also moved to Taiwan to work. So there are Thai influences, Filipinos kind of food, and Vietnamese food that are mixtures more and more, and making Taiwanese more variations. Yeah. And this is like a ongoing process.
And this migrants, you find them also in street food stalls, or do they open their own restaurants, or both things?
Yes, they open their restaurants definitely, but you can also find like mixtures of the dishes. There's one dish called, it's a bento, Japanese bento shop, but they sell Thai version of fried chicken on the bento.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and this dish you can find many bento shop, 椒麻鸡, but if you go to Thailand, there's not such a thing. It's a new Thai food in Taiwan. And I think it's so funny.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot with migration, because you have to adapt to the local customers, right?
Yeah.
So you need to do adaptation. That's I learned a lot about Chinese food in the States, how the whole adaptation and creating the concept of dim sum just to make it more popular for American audiences, and this was exported to many other countries. So it's quite interesting to understand these kind of things. I also have worked like in Spanish restaurants in Germany, and you cook their Spanish food that you want to find in Spain.
So it happens everywhere, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it's something natural. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the globalizations kind of merging to new shape.
Yeah, or cultural adaptation. Like the same thing you said, that you have like a very specific type of sushi. That's like kind of like the same thing, right?
Yeah, and there's also a very famous restaurant called Bao in London. Have you heard? BAO?
Not really.
It's a Taiwanese street food. They sell the guà bao, which is the steamed version sandwich.
Yes, of course, I know it.
Yeah, right?
Yes. Yeah, I follow them.
So this kind of sandwich is Taiwanese street food, and it's very like easy going. Like you can grab and go. The shape is like this, right?
And how do you call it in Taiwan? Also bao.
Guà bao.
Guà bao. Okay.
Guà bao, yeah. It's like a pocket, and you just fill with braised pork belly, and cilantro, peanut powder, pickled radish. These are the main ingredients and the most traditional way of making this sandwich. However, when they open the new restaurants in different cities, we also make variations in different kind of flavors to make it more like welcoming in other countries. So it's quite interesting for us to see, because we don't see these kind of variations in Taiwan.
Yeah, that's also interesting. Like when a food culture reinvents itself outside of the country, and then they bring that back to the country.
Yeah, and then we feel like, wow, modern bao. It's something that becoming popular right now. And I also got a client. It's from Portugal, actually. They contact me, say they are going to open a bao restaurant also, because they love Taiwanese food. They want to open this bao restaurants in Portugal. So I was working on the illustrations menu for them.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, if, for instance, I've never been to Taiwan. If I travel there and you have to say me, you have to try 5 things. These 5 things are musts that you can't leave without trying them. What would you tell me?
Wow. Do you eat spicy food?
Yes, I love it.
You love spicy food? Wow. I think 5.
And also strong aromas like stinky tofu and these kind of things I really like as well.
I would say you have to eat 5 different kinds of food a day, and you have to stay at least 10 days. For instance, if you go to night market, you can just eat every stops, So it's definitely not enough for you to try only 5. But I would say, if you want to see the whole pictures of Taiwanese food culture, maybe try a little bit of Taiwan flavored Japanese food. It's one. And maybe try some kind of variation that I mentioned, like the Thai version of Taiwanese bento.
Okay.
And the mixtures of all kinds of these variations. But definitely street foods, I think there are at least 10s, 20s, different kinds of things to try. And definitely don't just stay in Taipei, because Taipei is the capital, but outside of Taipei, there are also a lot of things to see.
What places do you recommend food-wise outside of Taipei, like cities or regions?
Okay, let me show you. This is the map of Taiwan, right?
Uh-huh.
And the Taipei here. I would recommend Jiayi.
Okay.
Jiayi is in the south.
Southwest. Okay.
Yes. And Jiayi has a lot of interesting food that is hard to find in Taipei. There's a kind of cold noodle, but with the mayo sauce. And this is only you can find in this area. And they also have like turkey rice and the fish head soup. There's also Netflix episodes talk about Taiwanese food. I can send you the link to see they introduce Jiayi, this area, quite well.
Okay. Super nice.
And if you want to see more differences, go to the East Coast. There are a lot of indigenous kind of food culture.
Mm-hmm.
There are 16 different tribes in Taiwan, the indigenous tribes. So for their food culture is more like scavenger and more like hunting and wild ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also very interesting on the East Coast. Taidong, Hualien.
What about the mountains?
Like here, this is very high, the tallest mountain in Taiwan, the Yushan mountain area. So in this region, you can find like very good cabbage. And there are so many fresh ingredients that were made into dishes like bamboo shoots, cuisines, mushroom cuisines, and also tea. This is the tea farm.
Nice.
All different kinds of region. Yeah, there are 6 different huge mountains areas that you can find very good tea. Yeah, so many things to see. Don't just stay 1 week. If you want to discover food in Taiwan, I recommend like stay a little bit longer, or your belly will explode.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday.